Yeah, it's always fun. That's right.
So thank you for being part of this today. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, family. I mean, everyone that came in and asked me, everyone, and then the long-standing members of this.
They were asking me the same thing when I had to say it.
Good afternoon. I would like to start by asking everyone in the audience to please rise and on stage as well, while we have the members of American Legion Post 22 from Lebanon, New Hampshire, post the colors.
Detail, hold. Right, face. Prepare to post. Post.
So for those of you who don't know me, I think most people in this audience do know me. I'm Deb Amder. I'm the Medical Center Director here at the White River Junction VA. It is a great honor and pleasure to welcome all of you here today in celebration first of the White River Junction VA's 75th anniversary as well as Veterans Day. You know, one of the things that we consider ourselves very lucky is that we have over 300 members of our staff are veterans themselves. So those folks have decided to continue service by coming here to work at the White River Junction VA. I wanted to ask how many of you in the audience, we know our panel up here are all veterans, but how many in the audience are veterans? Thank you for your service. I would like to especially recognize Pearl LaFont, who is sitting up here in the front row. Mrs. LaFont is a World War II Navy veteran. She served from 1943 to 1946. We're honored to have you here today with us. So while we have about 300 some employees who are veterans themselves, we also have employees who haven't served in the military. And it is extremely important to all of us who have not served in the military that we understand military culture so that we can better understand the veterans that we serve. And that's why we decided to ask our veteran employees to share some of their experiences and knowledge and understanding of military culture with all of us, because I think it is one way to further help us provide the kind of veteran-centered care that we really pride ourselves on here at the White River Junction VA. Today, and he served in the U.S., in Japan, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia. He served for over 20 years in the military, and he's been an employee here at the VA for 10 years and you added 3 months, so. And he's really just an absolutely key member of everything that goes on here at the Medical Center. And I'm going to let Andy introduce the rest of the panel members, but my heartfelt thanks to all of you to coming today to participate in this.
Thank you, Ms. Amder. So our distinguished members of our panel are from all services. They represent Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine Corps. We, of course, have a larger contingent of Army because they just can't seem to go in ones. They have to go in a group. So we've got 3 or 4 from the Army, and we welcome them all. They're great employees. We have everyone from, I won't single out anyone, but anyone anywhere from 30 years to, TJ, what do you have now? Almost 2? Yeah. About 2. Anyone newer than that? Adam, are you newer than that? No? So it's, again, we're represented by all of the services, and then a full range of, again, these are veterans and VA employees. So they're serving once again for our service, for the veteran service. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Shirley. We all know him as, right now he's the VISN representative for primary care, but he was our primary care and ambulatory care lead. He's also been an acting chief of staff at least twice, maybe 3 times, maybe more. When we have any historic information we need to gather, we go back to Dr. Shirley, and he's able to direct us in the right direction. He served chief of internal medicine, and then in the U.S. Air Force, he served in Plattsburgh Air Force Base, but that wasn't your only location, though, was it? You had several.
England Air Force Base also.
Okay. He's one of our lead police officers, sergeant, major, deputy chief, everything, all of the above. He was, all right, so we've gone from this side. We'll come back to Lynn Warmonger, but we've got TJ Such. He's, again, a newer employee. When in the service, he was a flight operations specialist, rank, and then from 1990 to 1997, and then field artillery officer as a captain from 97 to present. But you're no longer a captain, right? Major?
Actually have my paperwork in for Major.
Okay.
Should be coming around soon.
Okay, I don't know why my name's on there, but the next person is Adam Youngman. Adam has served, he's our, and I should say, he's our Marine Corps representative. Now, again, you were our Coastie, Air Force, Army, Navy. Sorry, sir. Okay. Marine Corps, and then Army also? Army also, and Army. So this is very weighted. Okay, Adam, he now has been with the VA for 5 years. Next person is Michael Daly. You may have seen Mr. Daly in the primary care setting. He was a major nurse practitioner in the Army. He went in places he was stationed was Maine Duke, Fort Sam Houston, Texas. He served from 1987 to 2007, 20 years of service. We'll shift back over to Lynn. Not Army, but Navy. She was in the Hospital Corps, Petty Officer, 2nd class, United States Navy. She was trained, and then she's here a registered nurse in cancer care. She's a devoted nurse to that service. Lynn has been recognized over the years several times, and recently, about 2 years ago now, she was recognized by the state of Vermont as the Federal Employee of the Year. The VA for a short 21 years. And last but not least, Lisa Brown, or Brew, excuse me. She title serve, in the service I should say, was armament and electrical technician for Apache helicopter. Way cool, very nice. Did you fly them much, or did you?
No, just worked on them.
Just worked on them. Chance to teach all VA providers one thing about working with veterans, what would that be? Go ahead.
I'm happy to start. I thought about, I don't need that, thank you.
Man voice.
Right, my outdoor voice. So I thought about this question, and for me, the answer came down to looking for stories. We take care of a lot of veterans who are elderly and sometimes struggling in their lives, but when you look back and ask them about their stories, they have amazing stories. And for example, I've taken care of folks who were in World War I and were gassed, people who were at Pearl Harbor, people on the Bataan Death March. One of my favorite ones was a fellow who walked in one day and he was wearing a cap that said USS Yorktown on it. And if you don't remember a little bit of World War II history, the Yorktown was damaged at Coral Sea, patched up in about 3 days at Pearl Harbor, and then sent back out to Midway. And I knew that, and I said, well, were you on the Yorktown when it was sunk at Midway? And he said, no, I jumped off it first. That was his story. And that's what I mean by the stories. Look for the stories in veterans. They have great, amazing stories.
Anyone else?
I would like to say that there is no typical veteran. We're all unique individuals, and we're just like you. And please don't judge us on any Hollywood stereotype.
How about someone from the current era?
I can honestly say that I think one of the big issues is hearing a non-veteran try and relate to things that you have been through, circumstances that you were involved in. As nice of a gesture as it is, I think if we just try to, it's just hard to relate. Just appreciate or try to kind of soak in, I guess, what we've been through and what we've done, and take it to that.
The other one is the person I am today. I had a little help from a worker of mine when we sat down and went over these. The person I am today is not the person I was back all those years when I served. So what I experienced then and who it's made me or maybe become today or what I've seen and what I've dealt with make me who I am today. And a lot of people don't realize that. So when you go see your, I don't know, with everybody else here, you go see your PCP or whatever, they don't know what I've done. They didn't know what I did, what I've seen, but I evolved from that 19, 21-year-old kid to this middle-aged man now.
Disgruntled old father.
So when I come to see Walk, you don't look, I'm not the 53-year-old guy, you're still dealing with that 21-year-old kid there on that island.
When you are dealing with a veteran, you're talking to them, veteran patient, be honest and upfront with them. Explain. A lot of times, you need to kind of take that extra minute or a little bit of that extra time to, explain things maybe in a little bit more detail, maybe, explain to that older veteran differently than you would with the younger veteran. Just kind of have a little patience.
Celebrating any different than any other federal holiday? Is it something, does it drive a real message home?
Yes. So it's a day to honor those who served unconditionally, who gave their life for what we have today. And for me and all my other fellow veterans, to honor them for serving.
Every day, but especially on this day, I tend to take a little more pride in what I have done, but I know I shouldn't do this, but I use it as an excuse to contact everybody that I ever served with. I should do it more often, but I definitely try to, more so on Veterans Day. Kind of use the day as a day to show more appreciation to everybody that you served with or that served.
I don't remember birthdays of lots of family members, but I had an uncle who earned a Silver Star in Korea. My dad served, another uncle served. An uncle who served in Korea and was killed in a hunting accident 3 days after he got home. So for me, it's more of a personal day of remembrance, not for veterans in general, but for my family that have served in the past, because I don't remember, like I said, birthday cards and Christmas cards and things like that.
I agree, because Veterans Day, it helps me remember my grandfather who served in World War II, and some of the stories that my father has actually told me about some of his experiences that my grandfather actually experienced. Even though he passed away a couple years ago, he didn't really write down his stories and would only tell certain things about what his experiences were. So it is kind of a remembrance, an extra remembrance of him, because he did serve in World War II, and it is family oriented.
Not to down everybody, not to down everybody, but sooner or later, you just hope that we'll have an armistice and
That'll, something that'll hold fast. Can you tell us something about being in the military that would surprise someone or anyone in the audience? And it can be anything. I know personally, I wasn't in the line of fire. I was in an aircraft. But I remember landing in Saudi Arabia one time, and we had a gentleman that decided that one of the crew members that wanted to go out and explore while we're loading the aircraft. And he actually, all these sirens are going off, and everything's just going crazy. And we thought there was incoming Scud. And it's our crew member that went into a minefield. So, can you cause any more havoc? We have enough here. But it's something like that, or any story, or do you have anything that you could share with the audience?
I have a short one that's actually a little bit of a downer. It was something that I didn't know at all before I went into the military. At the commissary on the base where I served in Plattsburgh, there was a great big banner that the commanding general had put up. And it said, because the government does not see fit to pay enough, use of food stamps is encouraged. And what that drove home was the fact that a lot of the people who were serving were young and they had families, and on the salaries that the military was paying, they couldn't afford to live. They had to use food stamps while they were serving in the military. I don't think a lot of people knew about that.
Go, Doc.
And unfortunately, Dr. Shirley, that's still the case.
It's true.
It's a challenge for them.
And that's, again, to the, and you can chime in, please do, but you saw that a lot with young members. You didn't have to deploy to war. There was a long period of time when we had the Cold War, and you had young men and women that you would go overseas for an overseas assignment, and they actually didn't have the wherewithal. They would get housing, but they wouldn't get a refrigerator. They'd get housing, but they wouldn't have a washer and dryer. They had to wait for months for those. So it wasn't just food stamps, but when you sometimes were deployed, the younger troops went without. So they found out, from these panel members, they found out what camaraderie was all about. So they found out, okay, I've got someone looking out for me, I've got someone that's going to support me in whatever I do. And by the way, it just so happens that, they're going to deliver a refrigerator to me today, which it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from up above. But again, that was, the word camaraderie really clicks in when you have that kind of involvement. Do you have any other stories?
The boot camp experience, it certainly surprised me, where they teach you how to fold everything very precisely, even your underwear, and they teach you how to clean a bathroom with a toothbrush.
And a floor with a toothbrush. So guess how long it's going to take.
I think along the lines of that, the first thing I thought of as far as civilians being surprised at what happens to us in the military is, along with what Andy was saying, is the camaraderie. When you do a job or a mission in the military, it gets done, and you're working 24/7 to get it done. And you might not like your fellow soldier because of their race, color, creed, or gender. I mean, let's be honest, prejudice is still out there. Or, the way they wear their hair or their mannerisms. Socially you might not get along, but you're going to be right there with that person side by side, because as we said in the Army, there's only one color, green. And you're going to do that job, and you're going to do 110%, and you're going to work 24/7 if you have to, days, months, years, as we see in deployments, and you're going to get the job done, and you're going to get it done above the standard. So everybody in the military, and I'm sure these folks will tell you, or if you were in the military, you pull together, you put your differences aside, and you get the job done. And going through boot camp, you have to fold your clothes a certain way, you have to do things a certain way. It's partially because they want to torture you and make your life miserable. Sure, I think they get great satisfaction in that, the drill sergeants do. But really, when it comes right down to brass tacks, it's because you're going to be in a situation someday and your life's going to depend on it. Your life's going to depend on doing something a certain way, the right way at the right time, to react the right way. So the military, the stakes are a little higher than out here in the civilian world. You know, the stakes in the military are life or death. And that's why they are as strict as they are when they train us, when they evaluate us. That's what came to mind for me.
Anyway.
Than I had any other. Although I was on an island in the middle of the Pacific and there's nobody there, so I'm in a small branch. There's only 4,000 of us in the whole entire world. One of my best friends was a Marine, and I'm a coastie. But we're all on this little island, so we all hung out together. We get friends with Navy. Air Force was already up at the other end, so we never saw them. They had the best beaches.
Best quarters.
But I had the deepest waterbed in the world. The Marianas Trench.
A lot of little comments that, kind of go around, but I think when it comes down to it, we all serve the same purpose, and we're all together. There's a camaraderie. There's a lot of love for every branch.
And you see that through history. So when you see the young men and women come back on a flight in some airport and you see someone in uniform, you see the different services or different ages, different generations, patting the guy in the back or the young woman in the back and wanting to shake their hand. All part of the camaraderie.
And in charge of the protection detail for the president and foreign heads of state. And then I get out, a couple years later, it's like, what do you want, kid?
Right. Yeah, that's so true. Because you are, and then the big part is you come out of high school or come out of college and then you're given people. You're given the responsibility of supervising. And that's the biggest responsibility. That there is, you're not born a supervisor. People are born a leader, but to supervise and to help people move throughout their career is a real challenge. So,
Yeah,
go ahead, sir.
For 33 years because of an injury that I had received while I was in service, that when I come in, I couldn't remember the medications. And then it kept getting worse, not remembering the medications, but what they were for. And then, did I give it to the patient? And then when it got to the point where did I give it to the right patient, I decided that's the time I better get out. But I was just out of high school, and here I was stationed at the Great Lakes Naval Hospital, taking care of all these guys coming back from Vietnam with arms and legs and all burned up and all this stuff. Working around them, get out, and then I became a nurse, came here, and I had different, stories that, the guys tell me that, there's one guy that he, in Vietnam, he was the tunnel. I don't know, he did. And like, why? That's fit them. I could not help it.
At that point in time, it's good to have a little structure to you, a little bigger than most people, because who would want to be a tunnel rat? Things that way, I guarantee.
Yeah. Now I'm using it.
So a similar question to what we had earlier. Would you experience or would you just share an experience of a time when you served that there was something that you were extremely proud of? And as you know, it's similar to the question we had, but is there something, doesn't have to be an individual experience, is there something that you were part of as a group, part of as an experience, something, deployment force or something like that?
Yeah, one that's probably not as serious like that one it is, but my tour in Iraq, we were basically given nothing as far as any office or headquarters type place. We had a berthing unit where we slept, but as far as getting day-to-day work done, we had nothing as far as a building goes. So a few of the guys that I was over there with decided that we were going to build something. So we gathered up a lot of supplies from our supply warehouse, old scrap wood, and actually built, called it a house, but it was an office type thing.
Sounds like a fraternity.
That kind of was. We took some incoming rounds, but nothing that actually hit the structure. And when we got back stateside, we got a letter from one of the units that had came after us, saying that the actual house took incoming mortar fire and stood. That was something. I'm still proud to this day. I'm not very happy, so.
Is it still there, do you know?
As far as I know, last I heard, that was, I think, 3 years ago.
Very
Still
good.
there.
Talk about getting seasick. So, I'm over in Guam, because I've never been there. It's a free trip. So one of our mottos is you have to go out, but you don't have to come back. And the Coast Guard says if you're on this size ship that I was on, you can't be anything out in 10-foot seas. Well, they send us out for 2 guys decide to go fishing in a 17-foot aluminum boat. And if you know anything about Guam, there's nothing there except Iwo Jima to your right and Japan to your left. And there's nothing for thousands of miles. Most of the people we do not find. When you're out in the Pacific and you get lost, you're lost. This one day we went out and we got a call to come back that a typhoon was coming in. And we had to get back within 36 hours, so we decided to stay out. We're now in 30-foot seas looking for these guys. There's only 15 of us. These guys are going to die if we don't find them. So it's about 10 o'clock at night, and they say, we're giving it up. This is our last chance. We're just going to make it back to Guam by the time this typhoon hits. And I'll tell you, from a kid from Vermont in 30-foot seas, it's pretty impressive. And they're all swells that don't break in the Pacific. So they sent us all to bed, so there's only 2 people up. Well, there's only 2 people who are sailing back now that are awake, and one of them's a young kid on a helm who tells his officer of the deck he's got a light off to his right, and that officer on the deck says, no, there isn't. There's nothing there. And he says, I got a light off to my right. It's a steady white light, sir. And he says, there's nothing there. So he says, before I make this call, I'm going to call the lieutenant. I call the lieutenant, and the lieutenant says, so what do you got? He says, I have a white light off to the starboard side. And the lieutenant said, there's nothing there. And he said, there's nothing there. And the lieutenant said, sail to the light. We sailed to the light 2 miles away, and it was the guy we're looking for standing in a boat with a big lighter. So we saved both of them, but we told them, we're not taking your boat because we're just going to make it. They were very happy to see us. And in Guam, they're so small, we got them back. At the town, a week later, the whole town threw a party for the Coast Guard, for saving us. So they're very appreciative that the Coast Guard's out.
What sticks out for me was before I joined the reserves, I was also in the National Guard, kind of hit all of them. And I was a commander at the time, captain, well, still a captain, so I'm a major, but I was a commander of a unit, and I had one of my soldiers who was chosen as the enlisted soldier of the year. It's a competition that soldiers do for non-commissioned officer NCOs and enlisted soldiers, and he had won the enlisted soldier of the year. Really good, high-speed kid, good kid. And when we promoted him from the rank of E4 specialist to the rank of E5 sergeant, that's the first rung in the non-commissioned officer NCO ladder. When he went to speak, he personally thanked me for being a mentor and a positive force in his military career, for all the mentorship and guidance and knowledge I imparted on him, I guess. He went on to be a first sergeant as well. Really good kid, but I was just really surprised that he did that when it was his turn to speak after becoming a newly promoted non-commissioned officer. So, it told me, I guess, I am doing something right. So I was really proud of that.
I'd like just to ask, do VA providers, do you feel that they pay enough attention to our veterans' experiences in the military, like what we shared? I know that there's a lot of sharing that goes on. And do we ask you and the veterans that we all serve about their time in the military? Do you think they give that piece of their time with the veteran? Do they give it enough attention, do you think?
Yes, I do.
As a provider.
It does. I can speak for two people, myself and my primary provider, and the answer is a resounding yes.
Very good.
It's incredibly important to me as a provider to ask, when we talked about it before, ask about the experiences and acknowledge the experiences. Everybody can't be, and everybody probably doesn't want to be a military history expert, but it helps to know who you're dealing with. And it's like Adam said, you can't necessarily understand, or I never deployed in combat. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what it's like to experience that, but I like to know if that's part of the problem. And I'll ask probing, I'll ask hard questions, and if they don't want to talk about it, it's okay. Yes, I do. Yes, Dr. Bracatitis does.
My work in cancer care, unfortunately, more often than we would like, involves end-of-life care. And so with end-of-life care, I ask the stories. I like to know a person's military history and how that colors who they are today. And it's a way to develop some rapport with them. And I value it highly.
Yes, and I get that question a lot from patients, actually. They want to know what my background was and whether I was a veteran. And I always felt that being able to say yes lent me a little bit more credibility with folks. And I also felt the same thing in some of the other jobs I've had here with the VA. And I'd say particularly when I was the acting chief of staff, being able to say that I was a veteran helped a lot when I was working with people outside the VA, people within the VA, people in the congressional delegations. I thought that was a big help.
And I was out there, I'd let them know that, I was a veteran as well. Out there, in the trenches with Jerry Greenwood, and, he can tell you, it does open them up a little bit. They're a little bit more receptive to you. And getting back on the provider thing, I use Dr. Orland down to Brattleboro Seabach. And, I started talking to him as the outreach specialist first, helping them with outreach. And, he did ask me what branch I was in, and I told him. And come to find out, he was an Army brat. His dad was in the Army. So I think I'm pretty sure I could speak for him in that he does, get that rapport with the veterans and reveal that to him. So.
So did Jerry teach you how to smell a veteran when you walk into a crowd? He's got that special, he can tell you what branch they are.
He's not letting up those trade secrets. He's not letting up those trade secrets, at least not to me.
Like hamburgers.
Sorry, Carol.
As a patient here, I will say that the providers do ask. As an employee, veteran, and patient here, I will vouch definitely for Dr. Romero does, and Mike Daly and Paula House. Those are the three I go to, and I would definitely say that they definitely ask about my military service.
Very good.
Kudos to the providers here.
Thank you. All right, so as panelists, and we all know as veterans working in Veterans Affairs, you're in a special position of being an employee working with veterans on a daily basis. Being that veteran yourself, how does that influence the work you do day in and day out? You've already several times alluded to that and said that it definitely it helps you with your position, it helps you to make that connection. Is there anything more? Do you think we've covered that pretty well?
It just gives you a great sense of pride, I think. I mean, personally, for me, being a veteran working here, it definitely drives me. More than any other job I've ever had.
Yeah. Do you think that some veterans kind of discount that and just say that, you've got the job? Do you really mean what you're saying?
I would think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that, I know there's sometimes, and especially as a patient advocate, you're trying to give them as much help as you can.
Yep.
Do you think that they're hearing you when you say, this is the best facility, or you're you're trying to tell them we're going to give them the best care.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I do. And, you know, like TJ was saying, it definitely, when you sort of give them, you know, the information that you already veteran yourself, that definitely eases them,
Yeah.
a bit, relaxes them.
I would like to say that as a veteran employee, that we have a vested interest in this facility and a vested interest in making this an excellent facility. Because if we don't already get our care here, we're gonna someday. And it's really in our best interest to make it best. Very simple.
We're veterans too. We're utilizing this healthcare program. I've been seen down in Providence. I use Providence, now I'm using us. And so we know what we want is what we need to give you. We need to give the other veterans who don't work here. And I think that drives us a little bit more. We're a little bit more, you know, driven, like Adam said. And it's like wearing the uniform. Well, not wearing it a weekend, a month, 2 weeks a year, but you know, when we wore that uniform, you know, we worked for the flag. Especially, I know myself being a commissioned officer, I worked for the flag a lot. And now with this new job, I work for the flag a lot. So you will see me here on average anywhere from like maybe past my regular work hours, maybe an hour, 2 or 3, and I don't think anything of it, you know. I just kind of hope my wife will hold off on cooking and not come home to a cold plate of food. But, you know, to me, it's a calling in that, you know, I'm helping the fellow veterans that really need it. So it's a labor of love. And you just have a totally different attitude towards your work. Being a veteran, working here, utilizing VA healthcare. Because, like in the military, I know, and being a patient rep now, as you know, Adam knows, and he can tell you, I think there's some pretty high standards set on us, and we're going to meet that challenge easily, bar none.
The work that you do, you think that you get that appreciation?
Always have, always will.
A lot of the times when you're talking to a veteran on the phone as well and you help them, they will say thank you to you. And it makes you a lot happier because they do say thank you. And even when they tell you about their service, you also say thank you for serving, and that helps them out as well. So it makes them feel a little bit better about coming to the VA for care.
That's good, giving it, you know, not only receiving it,
But giving it as well.
but giving it. That's great. Good. Anything else? Anyone else? So sorry, go ahead.
I think it's important to recognize the veterans that don't have the ability to share their story, that they're just as valuable as the ones who do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've had, in the past, we've had different opportunities to do recorded histories of veterans in different projects that have done a great job with maintaining that history, keeping that in the books, making sure that we don't lose that. So that's very valuable. Do you share with other staff that you are a veteran? And do other staff ask you if you are, or ask you more probing questions after you reveal that?
If I'm asked, I'll definitely share, but I think on a rare case, I offer that information first, unless the situation would call for it. But
yeah.
Definitely have been asked the probing questions, and personally, I don't mind. It always seems to come in a series. You know, first, the kind of the minor probing question, they get a little more intense as you go if you answer. But as we love them.
Everybody probably sitting here on the panel, I don't think, or people out there, I don't think we seek it, but if we're asked, we will recognize it.
Yeah.
I don't seek it, but I advertise it. Because I find that it's an icebreaker with patients. And they say, oh, Navy? Did you know somebody in the Navy? Yeah, as a matter of fact. You know, and it just helps get us on the same level, the same page, and you can get to information a lot quicker when you bond with somebody that quickly. So,
Especially in my field.
Yeah.
Mine too. I think it's a unique situation. It's not something you want to seem like you're, you know, going around bragging about. But on the other side, you are so proud of what you did that you're almost going to want to let everybody know about it.
sometimes being treated differently can be more frustrating and annoying than not being recognized or ignored, for that matter, you know. So just don't treat us any different.
Go ahead. Another thing for the non-veteran employee, though, is I'd like to see them at least take a little bit more effort to learn the history a little bit better. Because one of my sources of great amusement here is reading a chart and seeing somebody who's 52 years old who was a Vietnam veteran. Like, the math doesn't work. You know, he went to must have been his junior high prom during tech.
Yes.
Yeah, one thing too, my experience, you know, being a nurse both inpatient and outpatient is that, you know, you'll never understand truly as a non-veteran employee, you know, what our experiences are. But it helps to understand a little bit about our culture. I mean, I've deployed twice. I'm still in the Army National Guard. And sometimes I come back from a drill weekend, and sometimes I'm still in Army mode. And I remember one day up on 1 West, I'm giving a report, and I slipped into Army mode, and I commented about how I was helping the patient police up his area. And I just kept going on. And then one of the other nurses, who was a vet, you know, tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "Chris, they don't know what policed up means." And I looked up and saw all these like blank stares. And I went, okay, so I need to step back and explain what policed up meant. And you know, just.
I had just a couple comments. I'm a vet and I work here and have my care here. And looking at the record, or looking at the patient's record before you call them in, I'm called sir, or you know, so many times. And most of the time it doesn't bother me, but if I'm having a bad day, it can get, okay, are you looking at my record close enough to realize that I'm not, you know, a sir or something? And knowing who, I work up in the mental health area, and knowing who the other vets are for the non-veterans. So if you come across a vet that's talking and you're not quite getting it, you're not quite understanding where he's going, they might be a good resource to say, hey, I have a vet that's, you know, I have a patient that's saying some things and I'm not quite sure where he's going with it or what he's talking about. They might be a good reference to kind of decipher and interpret what the vet is trying to find out, because he might be in military mode. He might, you know, he might not be talking civilian talk, and there is quite a bit of difference when you start getting into more stuff. So.
I'd just like to say too that, you know, both as an employee here and as a veteran who gets my care here, I'm very happy with my care. Mike's my PCP. I've been absolutely thrilled with the treatment I get. I know a lot of veterans share that opinion as well.
Very good. Well, again, thank you very much to our panelists.
Unfortunately, that money.
Let's do one more thing too. If you want. Okay. They have a comment. Okay. So if we're ready, hold on for 1 second. If you would all stand, and we'll retire Kelly.
Column left, hook. Column left, hook. Heel hold. Right face. Try to recreate. Recreate. Left face. Forward. Cut. Column left, hook.
Tickets that you'd like to give to the panelists, and this is in recognition of their military service.
So you can all be seated. This will just take a moment. We wanted all of you and all of our veteran employees here to know that we are very proud of your veteran status and the fact that you have decided to serve yet again in service here within the VA. So we wanted to give you an opportunity, if you would like, to distinguish yourselves by wearing a badge that has your veteran status as well as your military branch on it. So we thank you all for being here today. This was really terrific. I gave you yours already. You're just not wearing it.
Got 5 minutes.
TJ, I don't have TJ either. Would you want to forgive me?
So we extend our heartfelt thanks for you coming and sharing your stories today, and to all of our veteran employees, we appreciate your service and your commitment to serve veterans here at the Medical Center as well. Thank you.